The A's got swept again, and it wasn't fun. The weekend started off awful, and then they got slightly better on Saturday and Sunday. So we're going to talk about the sweep over the first two segments and some positives coming out of that sweep. And then in the final segment, we're going to talk about the A's fan reverse boycott because I think that it's a great idea. But I do have one thing that I'm a little bit worried about. We're going to talk about that today on Locked On A's. How's it going, A's fans? And welcome to episode 556 of the Locked On A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, noted baseball fan Jason Burke, and on today's show, we're talking about the A's issuing 17 walks on Friday. What a number. What a time to be alive and be an A's fan and all of those things. And then we're going to talk about Saturday and Sunday's losses because, hey, why not? No, there's some positive takeaways from those two losses, even though they lost. Positive takeaways can still be had. And then in the final segment, the reverse boycott that is sweeping the internet and getting a lot of support from other fan bases. So we're going to talk about that a little bit on today's show. But before we get into anything, thank you so much for making Locked On A's your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms, including on YouTube. That's right. If you are watching this currently, make sure to subscribe down below, like and comment. That is how it helps the channel grow. Well, subs, obviously, but liking and commenting if you are already subscribed help the channel grow and find other fans like yourself. So do that, please. Also, you can follow us on social media at Locked On A's on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at ByJasonB on Twitter. Check out Inside the A's for more A's news, insight, and analysis coming your way whenever A's news happens. It's at Inside the A's, or if you want to just type it into the URL, it is si.com/MLB/athletics. Also, today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Baseball GM. Ever dreamed of becoming a Major League Baseball manager and GM, and managing your baseball franchise? Then this game is definitely for you. To download the game, just visit ultimatebaseballgm.com or look it up in the app stores. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On, all caps, in the game. It's a great game. Download it for real and say goodbye to your family and your free time. Play it during baseball games. Why not? It's a good time. But you know what wasn't a good time was the A's game mostly on Friday. Saturday and Sunday had some enjoyable moments. Friday did not. I take that back. They did get to Kodai Senga, and that was kind of cool. The rest of it sucked. So let's talk about this awful game. And we're going to try and, obviously, it's been a couple of days, which is nice. We're not hurting as much from that embarrassment of a loss, but we're gonna heal. We're gonna heal today, right now. First off, 17 walks by A's pitching on Friday. That was awful, and I think that they also hit two guys, which is a Major League Baseball record. Is 19 either walks or hits by pitch in a game. That's a lot. So that's the only bad stat that I'm going to throw at you guys. But let's run it down real quick. 7 of those walks were by James Kaprielian, one of the most veteran pitchers on the staff. Then there was 5 by the least veteran pitcher on the staff, Hogan Harris. He was making his big league debut. That poor guy. We're going to talk about him here in just a minute. 4 of those were by Yuri's Familia, another veteran pitcher. And then 1 by backup catcher Carlos Perez. So things did not go well in this game. It was not. I think they lost 17-6. Is that the final score? It doesn't matter. There was a lot of headlines and a lot of the A's are awful takes. And sure, the A's are currently after the weekend 3-13. So they're not playing well. I still think that there's a lot of fight in this team though. And I know that I'm optimistic. I know that I might be crazy. But I don't think they're this bad. I don't think that they're like a 30-win team. That seems ridiculous. I still think they might be able to take the series against the Cubs. We'll see. I'm not going to talk about that series at all today because I just want to be surprised. That's all. But let's talk about Hogan Harris a little bit here because Hogan Harris was brought up for a ridiculous, not a ridiculous reason. The A's needed pitching. They had just used Adam Oller as their spot starter. He didn't go very deep, so then they had to use their other long reliever, Adrian Martinez, to get them innings. That was on Thursday, and so they needed somebody fresh because their 2 long guys in the bullpen were no longer available. So they had to bring up somebody, and that somebody happened to be Hogan Harris, and I think that it was more what he was than who he is. is why he was brought up. Let's make sense of that phrase for a sec. Hogan Harris was fresh. He was due to pitch, I believe, that day. It starts in Las Vegas. He had like 4 or 5 days of rest. He was fresh. He was a fresh arm. They just needed a fresh arm, and he was also on the 40-man roster, so they didn't have to make another roster move and DFA anybody to keep him, to bring him up. So they just had to send down Adam Oller, who had just pitched, and that makes sense. So that is how that worked out. And then he got 1 out and walked 5. It wasn't great. Poor guy. I feel really bad because it really felt like they just wanted to have him go out there and eat innings, and he couldn't. And I feel bad for him because that was his big league debut. That is one of those things that you dream about. And for him to be making that debut under those circumstances when he's arguably not ready yet, he's still a work in progress, I think. In Vegas this year, I mean, the stats kind of say it for you. In Vegas this year, he has gone 4 1/3 innings pitched, given up 3 hits, 3 runs, hit a batter, walked 9 guys. So the walks had already been an issue, and struck out 5. So he wasn't there yet. He was not ready for his big league debut. He was not ready to pitch in the big leagues, but the A's needed a pitcher, and then they threw him out there, and that is going to be his big league debut for the rest of his life, and that kind of sucks. Hopefully he can, learn from it and, grow and come back and just be dominant later on, but you only get one big league debut, and it kind of sucks that was ruined for him because the A's needed pitching, and he was the right piece at the wrong time kind of thing. So I feel bad for Hogan Harris. quite bad, actually. That sucks because you dream about that for so long. But I also thought that it was kind of funny that today, on Monday, the A's got 3 pitchers in the minor leagues named Pitcher of the Week after the performance on Friday. One of those pitchers actually pitched on Friday, and that was Mason Miller, the A's number 3 prospect on MLB Pipeline, the A's number 2 prospect, I believe, on Fangraphs, but he's the number 98 overall prospect on Fangraphs, and that's really only because he hasn't thrown that many innings, and he's kind of injury prone, so they don't know where to rank him, but based on pure stuff, he's probably at least a top 20 talent, based on stuff alone. If you can be like, yeah, that guy's going to go give you 150 a year, Mason Miller is up there, you guys. He's got the stuff. People are talking. They're doing the chatterings. They're like, he's not going to be down there for long because he's great and the A's need pitchers. So Mason Miller on Friday, he went 5 innings, gave up 0 hits, walked nobody. So that was cool. He also struck out 11, a career high 11. One runner did reach. That's because a strike 3 got away from the catcher, and that is why it wasn't a perfect game, is because a runner reached on a strikeout. So Mason Miller, pitcher of the week in the PCL, the Pacific Coast League. So that AAA, Mason Miller, good job. Down in AA, Joey Estes, the number 22 prospect on MLB Pipeline for the A's. He was the Texas League pitcher of the week. I wrote about this one over at Inside the A's as well. Not the award, but his outing. He went 5 innings, gave up 2 hits, hit a batter. He also gave up 0 runs, walked nobody, struck out 6. I like this walked nobody thing that's going on. He pitched on Thursday, though, so he wasn't fresh. He wasn't going to be ready, and he's also not on the 40-man roster. Doesn't matter. And then, down in the Cal League, the California League, pitcher of the week. Can you guess it? Jake Garland. He is not an A's top prospect. He was drafted last year in the 2022 draft in the 17th round. He went 5 innings, gave up 0 hits, 0 runs, walked nobody, and also struck out 7. What a performance by these 3 pitchers, none of which helped the A's on Friday night. But hey, brighter days ahead, maybe. And actually, I got some other takeaways. Brighter days ahead, potentially, based off of Saturday and Sunday. We're going to go over those here in just a second. Today's episode is brought to you by Pro Baseball GM, and it is one of the coolest games that I have played in a very long time. I always thought that I'd be a pretty good GM, and that is kind of what I do on this show sometimes. Turns out, it's not that easy. If you've had the same thought and you've fantasized about managing your own franchise, go and download Pro Baseball GM immediately, because the game allows you to manage every strategic aspect of a franchise, playing through seasons and leading your franchise and fans to glory as you build a historic dynasty. In the simulation, you are responsible for hiring the right coaches and staff, managing team finances, scouting and drafting players, managing through difficult personalities and injuries, navigating your franchise through free agency and all of the ups and downs of a season, and boy, are there a lot of them. You're going to want this this promo code that I'm about to get you too. So trust me, I played 25 seasons of this thing. You need the promo code. But all this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Baseball GM is completely free and playable offline, so you can play on the go and as you want, when you want to. It's a pretty cool concept. I like that. Locked On A's listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On in the game store. So check it out now. To download the game, just visit probaseballgm.com. Scan the code over here if you're on YouTube, or you can just look it up in the app stores. That's probaseballgm.com. Ultimate Baseball GM. Start your dynasty today. Welcome back to the Locked On A's podcast. Thank you guys so much for making the Locked On A's your first listen of the day. Everydayers, tomorrow on the show, we are going to be talking about why the A's being bad might actually be good long term. So that's going to be a fun discussion. You can also make sure to follow us on social media at Locked On A's on Twitter and Instagram. I'm a by Jason B on Twitter. Check out Inside the A's for more A's news, insight, and analysis coming your way. Whenever A's news happens, it's at Inside the A's. That's at Inside the A's on Twitter, or if you want to type it into the URL, si.com/MLB/athletics. Also, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and subscribe to the podcast, wherever you like to hear podcasts. Do all those things. But let's talk about Saturday and Sunday. The A's still lost these games. So if you only want the A's to win games, might not be the year for you, because things have not been good so far. But they didn't win, but it felt like they were pointed in the right direction when the series ended. And I feel like that is important to keep an eye on this coming week. The A's have been facing some really tough competition. Let's be honest. They faced Cleveland, a very good team. They faced the Angels, a fully healthy LA Angels, dangerous team. They're just usually not healthy. I think, was it last year? They didn't face Trout at all last year or the year before. One of those years didn't face Trout because all of their games against the Angels were later in the season and he had already been on the IL, so didn't matter. So there's those two teams. There's the Mets from this past weekend, the Tampa Bay Rays, who just finally lost a game. They've had a rough schedule. Let's be honest, a very rough schedule the first couple of weeks here. They beat the Orioles once and they played them very, very close. Probably could have won another game in that series and split with the Orioles. Instead, they went 1-3. That's fine, whatever. But the Cubs and the Rangers could be an interesting week for the A's. Maybe they get a couple of wins this week. Maybe they get 3. Maybe they get 4. I don't know. I don't want to be too optimistic here, but I think that they're going to win a baseball game this week. Let's leave it at that. But the reason that I think that they're pointed in the right direction is because of the starting pitching. On Saturday, Shintaro Fujinami had a, honestly, quite good outing. Quite a good outing for him. He went 6 innings, gave up 4 hits, 3 earned runs. 2 of those were on a solo home runs, and the third one was actually allowed by Trevor May in relief off of Brendan Nimmo's bat. He doubled down the right field line there, and he walked the guy after Shintaro Fujinami walked the guy after allowing the home. No, it wasn't after allowing the home run. That was Sunday. Doesn't matter. He walked the guy and then was pulled from the game because his stuff was doing okay. He was getting up to his pitch limit. He'd gone 6. That was great. And so then they took him out and gave it to Trevor May, and Trevor May allowed that run. That is why he gave up 3 runs in that one. He also walked 2. That's not bad. I can live with 2 walks from Shintaro Fujinami, and he struck out 5. Post-game, it sounded like him and Carlos Perez had a nice thing going. Fuji, I believe, said that Carlos Perez said it. Sorry, that's my bad. Carlos Perez said that him and Fuji would talk through interpreter Issei Kamada in between innings and like, hey, get on the same page and do all that stuff. And they hadn't really thrown together a lot, but it seemed like they had a good rapport with one another. And quote of the day had to be from Carlos Perez, who's a good quote guy, honestly. He said, he was asked, hey, so what was it like to catch Fuji? And he said, it was fun. his stuff was he has nasty stuff. He didn't say stuff. Check out the article on Inside the A's if you want to read the word that is not stuff. And I thought that was great. So they seem to do okay together. And also, I'm not saying that I actually asked Marcotte about this, and he said they just lined up like this. But Ken Waldachuk had also gone 6 1/3, I believe, in Baltimore with Carlos Perez as his catcher. And I was like, is there something that he's doing differently with the pitchers? And he's like, no, that was just a coincidence that it happened to be like that today. That wasn't a thought process to be putting a guy that is struggling that you need, to harness a little bit, and putting him with Carlos Perez. That wasn't necessarily the calculation there. So that one was, I thought it was interesting, but apparently not. Oh well. Anyways, JP Sears on Sunday also had a good start. He went 4 2/3 in his first start, 5 innings pitched in his next start, and then 6 on Sunday. He's steadily improving. He's doing pretty good. We've seen some good starts from JP Sears over his career, or over his time with the A's, but a lot of those were against the Seattle Mariners, and then not so good against other teams. He's doing fairly well against all teams right now. I'm intrigued to see what JP Sears does. I kind of want to keep him in the rotation. Honestly, I thought that he'd be a long guy, but I kind of like him here right now. He's doing okay. He went 6 innings, gave up 4 hits, 2 earned runs. Both those were just on solo home runs. Literally murdering the Oakland A's over the weekend. He didn't walk anybody, struck out 3. Good stuff. Fuji was using his fastball a lot, fastball splitter combination, and then JP Sears went fastball, and they both want to just establish that fastball, and then he also worked with the sweeper a little bit as well. So that was basically the key, is especially after Friday, establish the fastball. Everything else will play off the fastball. Make sure that you throw strikes. That has been the goal for the Oakland A's pitching staff, especially since Friday, but all season. But after Friday, I felt like that was hammered home just a little bit more. And they got the big hit on Sunday, but then the bullpen didn't close it out. The A's had opportunities on Saturday, didn't get that big hit. So they're just trying to piece everything together at this time. It's been a couple of weeks. It's still early in the season, but they're not winning games, and so that stinks. And Mark Kotsay said after the game that the bullpen guys, here, I got the quote, it's just written small. Our bullpen guys, you look at their workload, Jackson's thrown 5 out of 8 or 9 games. We're leaning on these guys right now. Same as Danny, back-to-back days again. It's not an excuse, but the reality of it is that they've been used a lot. End quote. And he said that, we've been using them in down games, which is, when they're losing, because they have to. They need to cover these innings, and they only have so many pitchers that can do it. And I think that the reason that I'm not excited, but more optimistic following this weekend series is because they were getting length out of the starting pitching. And if that can continue, we got Kyle Muller going tonight against the Cubs. Hey, maybe. If you can start stringing together some, 5 2/3, 6, 7 inning outings, then the bullpen can get some rest. And maybe they'll perform a little bit better. They'll be a little bit more consistent, a little bit less erratic. Zach Jackson walked 3 guys in the 10th inning, I believe, after he came in with 2 outs and a runner on third base, the zombie runner on third base. So he allowed a run, and that was the difference in the game. But he's been really good this season. And also, I looked it up. He pitched 5 games last week, 5 out of 7 games last week. He was used a lot because the A's needed innings. And then also, Danny Jimenez pitched 4 out of 7 games last week. Mark Kotsay is leaning on these guys, and so it's hard to expect, them to perform up here when they're just being used all the time. So I get what he's saying here, and it stinks. I would definitely expect Sam Moll pitches every day, so Sam Moll is available, I would assume, on Monday. But Chad Smith, Yuri Familia, I would assume that both those guys would be the main pieces out of the bullpen tonight. And then, hey, we'll see. Maybe Trevor May. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know who's going to be closing tonight's game, but Probably Trevor May or Chad Smith. Maybe Chad Smith can go the 8th and the 9th. I don't know. I talked to him. I got to write that article because I finally talked to Chad Smith, and he was delightful. So looking forward to that. But coming up, we're going to be talking about something that's not delightful, and that is A's ownership. Kind of. We're going to be more so talking about the reverse boycott that A's fans are planning for later this year. So stay locked in, you guys. Today's episode is brought to you by So Rare. Our new sponsor, So Rare, is a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace transforming fans into owners with officially licensed digital cards featuring players from across all 30 MLB teams. Unlike other fantasy baseball platforms, So Rare's managers truly own their fantasy experience, collecting, buying, selling, and competing with with player cards against global opponents to win epic rewards. Win or lose, you still own your cards, and there's no cost to play. Plus, the more you win, the more you advance, collecting increasingly powerful cards and accessing next-level competitions and rewards. It also, some guys that they're working with, you got Juan Soto, you got Julio Rodriguez. Name two more exciting players that you want associated with things that you do. I like them in my baseball. Why not in my baseball fantasy experience? So head to sorare.com/lockedon. That is SORARE.com to draft your team of free player cards, set your lineup, and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/lockedon to start playing today. Welcome back to the Locked On A's podcast. If you guys are enjoying the show, make sure to subscribe wherever you like to hear podcasts. Follow us on social media at Locked On A's on Twitter and Instagram. I'm a by Jason B on Twitter. Check out Inside the A's for more A's news, insight, and analysis coming your way whenever A's news happens. It's at Inside the A's, si.com/MLB/athletics. But let's talk about this reverse boycott. I was tagged in this by a fellow named Stu Clary. And I think that is great. That Locked On A's was tagged in this. Not me personally, but Locked On A's was tagged in it. And I was like, I am intrigued. So I reached out to him via DM and was like, hey, can I learn some more about this? I would like to use whatever platform I have to try and push this for you guys. That would be great. Because I would like to see the A's fans basically pack the Coliseum. That's what the whole thing is. It's pack the Coliseum on a day where it's not expected to happen. And so that is the impetus right here. Is they picked June 13th, Tuesday, June 13th, against the Tampa Bay Rays. And that is the game that A's fans want to sell out to show ownership that they are here and that they will support this team, but they got some demands. So I asked Stu a couple of questions via DM, and I got some quotes for you guys, and then we'll send us on our way here for the day. But I talked to Stu Clary, and he said that the goal is to show MLB, local media, and the nation that we can and will support this team, end quote. He also said, fans are not the problem, and that is a great quote. I love that one. The fans, I do believe, are not the problem. I think that I wrote about this. I wrote the full interview over at Inside the A's, and it's gotten some traction, so that's good. It's the word is getting out, but I think that the fans are not the problem, and I explained that a little bit more in that piece that I wrote over at Inside the A's. I'll link it down in the show notes for the audio guys, for the audio people. But there's a lot of reasons why the A's are not, or why the fans are not the problem, and a lot of that is raising season ticket prices while also trading everybody away in the same. That's a weird thing to try and sell. Also, A's ownership has not been anywhere to be seen to try and be like, oh, this is what we're doing, this is what we're working towards. It's no silence. It's wild. It's wild. And so he also said, Stu Clary also said, quote, we're here and we're ready to support, but only if the A's, not they're the A's, are run like an actual major league team, end quote. Got demands. I love it. I think that this is a very interesting concept. I would love to, I'm going to be at the game, obviously. I want to see how this goes. People are, I'm still tagged in that tweet, so I see all of the replies. And people are like, hey, I'm not from the area, but I love what you guys are doing. Best of luck. Or, I'm a Giants fan, but I love this. I'll be at the game. Or, there's people from all around baseball that love Oakland and the Oakland A's, and they want to see the A's stay, and so they're offering their words of support, and I think that that's great. It's been a good time, just to see the love that people have for the team, even though people love to dunk on this team, which is something that I try not to do, which is why I like to be optimistic, because if you want a pessimistic take, that's everywhere else. That's not here. That's not at Locked On A's. That's not at Inside A's. That's not me. I don't dunk on people very often. It's not fun. It's easy. Meh. Let's try and find some good news to talk about. And that's why I like the reverse boycott. I think it's a good thing. We're going to see how it goes. There is one thing that I'm a little bit worried about, though, here. And that is that the date, June 13th, is like in a couple of months. Things could happen. Like, bad things could happen in the next couple of months. Mostly because the Las Vegas legislature, there we go, chur. There's no CH, but it's a chur. Legislature, there we go. That's a word that I don't say very often, so you got to see me learn how to say that live. The Las Vegas legislature closes on June 5th. So that means that if the A's are going to get something done with the city of Las Vegas or, Clark County and all that stuff, it has to be done by June 5th. So the A's could be, in theory, if you believe the reports, and by reports I mean what Rob Manfred says, if you believe that, the A's could have a deal signed with Las Vegas by the time this thing rolls around, which sucks. So that is my one concern. The other part here is there's only 2 months to get it in front of the legislature before they close. And as of right now, they don't have a place picked out, so maybe they're okay. Maybe it's going to be fine. But the A's are going to be taken off of, why can't I think of the name right now? The thing where they get the money from the other owners, that one. They're going to be taken off of that as of next year, like January 15th of next year, I believe. January 12th, one of those two. Early January next year, they're not going to be getting revenue sharing, that's the word, if they don't have a ballpark deal in place. So June 5th is kind of a big deadline for Las Vegas. They could either have a lot of stuff done, and June 5th is kind of like the end points, or they'll be where they are now. And maybe this reverse boycott could be a big sign for the A's staying in Oakland. It could it could mean nothing. It could mean everything. It's going to be a big, big day, I think. And so if you guys want to go out to the game, just make sure to go buy some tickets. Tuesday, June 13th against the Tampa Bay Rays, formerly the Devil Rays. I don't know why I said that, but whatever. That's going to be a big game. It's going to be a big game for maybe the future of the franchise. We'll see. I don't know that A's ownership's necessarily going to care, but hey, we all get to band together and share some stories and be all in the same place. And that's always a fun time. So come for that at the very least. Whether or not it means anything, come have some fun. There's going to be tailgating. There's going to be a bunch of stuff. I'll probably be working that game, but I'm going to see if I can go outside and interview people and tell the story, because I think that's where the content is that day. I don't think it's going to matter what happens in that game. I think that this is the story right here. So if you guys want to reach out. I'm at by Jason B. It's right there on the screen. You guys got some quotes? I'll publish them on outside.com. It is fine. I have nobody above me. It's me. Send me quotes. I will publish. Anyways, thank you guys so much for making Locked On A's your first listen of the day. On tomorrow's show for the everydayers, we're going to be talking about why the A's being so bad might end up being kind of good. We're going to talk about that tomorrow on the show. So, until next time, go out and celebrate good times, A's fans, and I will talk with you tomorrow.